Do you ever wish your life was a little less ordinary, had more flash and excitement in it? Well, this time on the Discover the Word podcast, we continue a series of conversations with our friend, pastor and author Jeff Manion, about the power of a life marked by a slow and steady and consistent faithfulness.
I mean, you open the pages of the Bible, giants are falling, fire is falling from heaven, the Red Sea is parting, lions don't devour a person. And you go, my life feels so basic and so uninteresting when held up against the story of the Bible, or at least held up against those sections of the story of the Bible.
Yeah, but is that really the case? I mean, did the lives of those we read about in the Bible live a miracle every day, Sports Center top 10 plays kind of life? We'll pull a chair up as we start another episode in our series Dream Big, Think Small, next. And it is great to have you here for another hour of studying the Bible together. Discover the Word is Bible engagement for life from Our Daily Bread Ministries. And in this episode, regular group members Mark DeHaan and Elisa Morgan and Bill Crowder have a guest with them. From time to time, we have friends sit at the table with us and help us explore ideas and sections of Scripture that challenge us and help us grow. And so over the course of 2 episodes, pastor and author Jeff Manion is helping us understand how much God values faithfulness and how a faithful life is in many ways built on the everyday, ordinary routine of life. This is how Jeff put it in part 1 of this study.
You see, often I think we try to live extraordinary lives by doing extraordinary things. Sometimes I think we arrive at extraordinary lives through doing ordinary things faithfully.
Yeah, and so let's now explore more of how important it is to be faithful in the ordinary and how that truly can be a path to living an extraordinary life in God's eyes. Jeff?
In these conversations, we're just really talking about the power of slow and steady faithfulness. That is, that life doesn't just, lurch from one stellar, massive breakthrough moment to the next, but there's just a whole lot of ordinary going on. But think with me for a second about the diet of Bible stories. Bill, were you raised in a church environment?
Yes.
Okay.
Not
Lisa?
so much.
Not so much?
Not so much.
Yeah,
Mart,
I was,
you were?
sure.
Okay, Martin, Bill.
Okay, I'll just sit over here.
Yeah. No, it's the children's Sunday school papers.
Yeah.
Right? I want you to reflect back on the stories that you heard as a child in a kids program in church without giving it much thought. Just riddle off as many children's Bible stories as you can think of.
Goliath, without
Okay,
a doubt.
David and Goliath. Okay, David and Goliath.
And Daniel and the Lion's Den.
Daniel and the Lion's Den.
Oh, for sure. Jesus raising Lazarus from
Okay.
Moses crossing the Red Sea.
Creation, Genesis 1, the animals in paradise.
Okay, let me isolate some of those stories. David and Goliath. Israelites are in battle with the Philistines, and shepherd boy David shows up at the battle and ends up knocking out the Philistine war hero with a rock from a sling. But what I'm trying to corner here is that there's a propensity to expose our kids to a heavy dose of these massive miracle stories, and we leave out a lot of the mundane.
Well, I think it's probably true that we expose all of us on Sundays and Saturday nights in our services to some of those stories and leave out the mundane because they're much more exciting. And your point is well taken. There's something we're missing by threading these miraculous things into the ordinary.
Well, let's take the ones that have mentioned, whether we experience them as a child in a children's program or whether we experience them as a Sunday morning as a middle-aged adult. David and Goliath, Daniel and the Lion's Den. This guy Daniel is lowered into a pit of lions and God rescues him from the lions devouring him. Moses leading the children of Israel out of captivity in Egypt. The Red Sea parts and he crosses. I think in focusing exclusively on those stories, we can have an imbalanced expectation. I mean, you open the pages of the Bible, giants are falling, fire is falling from heaven, the Red Sea is parting, lions don't devour a person. And you go, my life feels so basic and so uninteresting when held up against the story of the Bible, or at least held up against those sections of the story of the Bible.
But how in the world could children have been kept quiet? While you describe
With the
these
boring
common,
stuff.
routine, ordinary
I understand
moments
why
of the
David and
Scripture.
Goliath made the third grade boys Sunday school class, because it's, it is awesome, heroic story. But Bill, you mentioned Moses and the Red Sea.
Yeah.
What is Moses doing for the 40 years prior to the Exodus?
He's watching his father-in-law's sheep in the wilderness.
For how many decades?
4.
Okay. The Red Sea story happens. God parts the waters of the Red Sea. But this is a massive breakthrough event that happens after 4 decades of fairly ordinary, mundane routine. It's the extraordinary, but it's in the midst of the ordinary.
Okay.
Okay.
And by the way, Moses had been raised in Pharaoh's courts with all kinds of excitement, and now is sent to raise sheep. So, he's truly sandwiched between excitement and excitement in the ordinary.
He has to feel backburnered during that kind of off the map.
Yeah.
Mart, you mentioned David and Goliath. What is David doing immediately preceding the conflict with the Philistines Goliath event? Do you know?
And he's watching his father's sheep.
Okay. I actually want to read it.
Okay.
I actually want to read it. And this moment goes even prior to the Goliath moment, and it's when David is anointed by the prophet Samuel as the next king of Israel, and he's just a kid. And so prophet Samuel goes to the house of Jesse, and son number 1 walks in, and Samuel goes, "Oh, this has got to be the next king." And the Lord whispers to him, No, it's not this one. It's number 2. No, it's not number 2. It's number 3. And Jesse parades all of his sons in front of Samuel, and God keeps giving these guys the thumbs down. And then Samuel says, "Is this it?" And Jesse goes, "Well, there's the youngest.
The runt of the litter.
Where is he? Where is he?"
He's not even in the room.
No.
He's not even in the room.
He's out watching the sheep.
Okay, 1 Samuel chapter 16 is where this story picks up. 1 Samuel 16, verse 11.
And Samuel said to Jesse, "Are these all the children?" And he said, "There remains yet the youngest, and behold, he is tending the sheep." Then Samuel said to Jesse, "Send and bring him, for we will not sit down until he comes here."
All right, we will not sit down for a meal. We're not going to eat until the youngest shows up.
And up until this moment, they would have been quite happy to eat without him.
Yeah, absolutely. David is not invited to this party. As you said, Lisa, he's not even in the room. Now, Samuel takes a container of oil, and he pours some on David's head, anointing him as the next king of Israel. And at that moment, David's life does not seem to radically and totally change, because in the next story, which is the David and Goliath story, he's back with his dad's sheep. And so his dad grabs him and says, "Hey, I want you to go visit the site where this military conflict is taking place. Take these gifts to your brother's commander, find out how the battle's going, and come back and tell me." And when David gets there, one of his brothers goes after him. It's kind of like, you just came to see this fight. But the way in which his brother ridicules him is interesting. And this is in 1 Samuel 17. Mark, can you read that one? 1 Samuel 17:28.
Okay. But when David's oldest brother Eliab heard David talking to the men, he was angry. "What are you doing around here anyway?" he demanded. "What about those few sheep you're supposed to be taking care of? I know about your pride and deceit. You just want to see the battle."
Yeah. Wow. But David's back with the sheep.
What a cut.
I isn't that? Isn't that? And just the fact that made it into the Bible.
Yeah.
Here's this young and emerging leader, and here's a jealous sibling, trying to knock him down.
In the
a few
next verse,
steps.
David goes, "Now what have I done?"
What younger brother hasn't said that?
Oh my goodness. Now what did I do? But here's the thing. And right after this event is the story of David and Goliath. Now, our gracious God rescues his people in that conflict through David, the next anointed king. The story of David and Goliath is real and powerful and dynamic, but leading up to it is just this redundant, ordinary kid doing chores. David is faithful with the sheep, and then he will be transformed to be the faithful shepherd of Israel. But all I'm pointing out there, just like with the Moses story, where this guy is on the backside of the wilderness, not even watches his flock, watching his father-in-law's flock, this powerful moment happened, but it's the extraordinary in the midst of the ordinary. And so I think there's power in when we're reading our Bible and we come across this massive breakthrough moment, just to pause and say, okay, what was happening before that? And what happened after that? And to realize that often the extraordinary happens in the midst of the ordinary. Because lots of life, our lives, are just not that interesting.
I think about even, if you read the Gospels and you watch Jesus go and feed 5,000 or he's healing so-and-so. But in the verses just right around it, for instance, he heals all of Capernaum. And right after that, he goes up on a mountainside and prays. Just quiet moments, and then he'll heal the whole city. It's like a discipline to learn to read and see more than the extraordinary, to see that ordinary. It's like a practice, I guess.
And the power in that, the importance of that, is that a lot of what we devote our lives to simply isn't that interesting. We wake up in the morning, we invite God into our day, we babysit for our kids so that they can take a break when we watch the grandkids. Someone cleans the church. You coach a youth soccer team. You serve on a church board when you're in yet another board meeting. And it feels mundane by comparison to these big Bible miracles. I think a challenge for us is just be faithful with the ordinary. Offer yourself to Jesus again and again and again in the ordinary things and trust God to work the extraordinary in the midst of the ordinary.
Yeah, when we're faithful with the ordinary, God can use that to accomplish extraordinary things. You're listening to Discover the Word, Bible Engagement for Life from Our Daily Bread Ministries. And in this episode, we're discussing the idea of living a significant life faithfully, one day at a time. Dream big, think small is the title of the series. And so in this next segment, they want to know, did anything happen today that would make the highlight reel of your life? And if not, does that necessarily mean that this wasn't one of your better days?
Question. I want you to think in terms of the sports programs where they have like the top 10 plays of the week, the highlight reel. Unbelievable catches, throws, home runs. Guy goes up for the catch. He pulls in the catch, and he lands with his feet barely in bounds. Unbelievable touchdown pass. So it's football. Go to another sport.
I go to baseball, and bottom of the ninth, bases loaded, down by 3 runs, 2 outs, 2 strikes, and the guy hits the grand slam to win the game.
And highlight reel. Highlight reel. Golf, this incredible chip,
Yeah, it rolls all the way to the cup.
All the way to, or lands beyond the cup, backspin within 6 inches of the cup. All right. You get the idea, right, with a highlight reel. What never makes the highlight reel?
Yeah, loss of 3 yards with a penalty of 15.
Yeah.
Is everything short of something fantastic?
That's a
what
good
I
way to
think
put
of,
it.
Jeff, is in baseball, where the leadoff man, his job
Is
in
to get
some
on
ways
base.
is to get on base, but in doing that, to show his teammates as many different pitches. And so if he extends that at bat 8, 9, 10 pitches, even if he doesn't get on base, it's a productive at bat.
And if he walks,
Yeah.
okay, a bloop single, a solid run on first down for 5 yards.
Yeah.
I'll take 2nd and 5.
Okay, you may be leaving some people behind here. We're getting quite technical. So bringing it into beyond sports, what else?
Well, let me say just one more word about sports.
Okay.
What we never see in the highlight reel is stretching. What we never see in the highlight reel is someone running laps. We might see the monster slam dunk. What we never see is someone shooting free throws in an empty gym where there's no cameras and nobody's watching, but they are bound and determined to practice free throws day after day after day. The highlight reels, by definition, collapse all of the repetitive, boring, basic work down into these few exceptional, phenomenal moments. And yet it's the stretching, it's the running laps, it's the practicing free throws, it's the weight room that make the highlight reel possible. And I think that sometimes when we open the Bible and we read the miracles, we're watching the highlight reel, and we somehow neglect all of the very ordinary activity that is going on day after day after day, out of which those miracles occur.
That's a great reminder.
Where do you see that?
I read through the life of Jesus recently, looking for the ordinary parts. Because with the life of Christ, certainly that's a part of the Bible where it seems like Jesus just moves from one miracle to the next. And I started asking, what was Jesus doing when that miracle took place? Because something extraordinary happens there. But what was the ordinary, normal stuff that he was committed to? I started looking for the ordinary Jesus. That is not that Jesus is ordinary in any way, but when he's doing something basic, something that doesn't make the highlight reel.
What kinds of things did you find?
Well, you know the story where some guys have a paralyzed friend, and these 4 guys carry the paralyzed guy to where Jesus is, and they literally go up on top of the roof, probably a flat roof, and they hack a hole in the roof, lower their buddy down to be where Jesus is.
Yeah.
The guy is carried in, and he skips out because of the miraculous work of Jesus. Now, that's the extraordinary.
That is.
But the story begins by describing how Jesus was teaching in this house. And so many people are listening to him teach and want to hear him teach that the 4 guys can't get their buddy to the front door. That's why they go up on the roof. But it's a teaching story that's interrupted by a healing opportunity. But Jesus is devoting himself again and again and again to sitting and teaching. In comparison to healing someone who's paralyzed, teaching feels very ordinary when weighed against that extraordinary. I find that again and again and again and again.
Well, and even just in the New Testament process of discipleship, I mean, most of Jesus' work with his disciples was as they were just walking around.
Look at the fig tree.
Yeah.
You
It's
know,
just
look at
life
the soil.
is going on.
And they were walking miles and miles.
Miles and miles.
So, on that same thing, I just want you to think of one more story similar to that. And again, Jesus is teaching. Peter has been fishing all night, as often fishermen did. He didn't catch anything. He just got skunked that night. And rather than being able to wash his nets and get some sleep, Jesus says, no, I need the boat. I need the boat. And Jesus co-opts the boat. It's like he's getting mobbed because so many people are trying to get a hand on him, maybe for physical healing. So he gets into Peter's boat, has Peter row out a little bit, and then Jesus teaches from the boat. And he talks, and he talks, and he talks. Sermon over. Peter brings Jesus back. And that's when Jesus goes, yeah, I'm getting out. You're not. Go back out and try again. And there's this story about the miracle, the miraculous catch of fish. But once again, here's this miracle that happens, truly an incredible miracle, but it happens in the context of just very ordinary stuff, which is Jesus teaching in a boat. The other common activity is Jesus praying.
Yeah.
The Lord's Prayer.
Yeah.
You know, our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Jesus is praying, and his disciples come up to him and say, would you teach us how to pray? And Jesus says, well, when you pray like this. But again, it's probably one of those walking down the road,
ordinary.
It seems like the extraordinary comes out of the ordinary faithfulness.
And what's interesting, Jeff, is the miraculous catch of fish in Luke 5, which happens while Jesus is teaching. At the end of chapter 4, it says, the disciples came to him, and he said, I must preach the kingdom of God to other cities, for I was sent for this purpose. And he kept on preaching in the synagogues of Judah. So there's this whole string of teaching, and then this is one more teaching, and then the fish.
Teaching, praying, discipling, miracle.
Yeah.
Teaching, praying, discipling, miracle. The miracles happen. They're there. But it was the remarkable that came out of the ordinary and daily faithfulness of Christ. And I love that.
Why are you so enthused about this idea?
I'm enthused about this idea because so much of daily faithfulness is just bringing our best self again and again and again in ordinary ways to ordinary people. And so, Mark, I open my hands and I say, God, meet us powerfully, use our lives powerfully. But as you're waiting for that moment where God will break through and show himself in a powerful way, there's just a lot of ordinary stuff in life that's good stuff. I think it's so powerful because of this, particularly many of my younger friends, Mark. They genuinely want to live great lives, but they're looking for something great to do. And as they're waiting for this moment where they're discovered or where they find their unique contribution to the world, all of these opportunities to do good things keep marching by undetected and uncelebrated because they're looking for something great. And so what I try to whisper again and again, you will probably arrive at greatness, not through doing great things, but doing good things repetitively.
I can remember being told as I was ambitious and wanting to do the next thing and the next thing and the next thing in my different roles in leadership, I can remember being told, do this thing and the next thing will come. If you want to get to the next thing, do this
Like
thing.
what? Do you have an example?
Well, for instance, maybe I'm in the mailroom. Truly, I was through college shipping packages, and I would have my eyes set on being the supervisor. And, the advice came to me, well, do this job well if you're interested in the next job.
Yeah. Faithfulness is needed. It's needed in families, and it's needed in churches, and it's needed in companies. Look at the core of any good, strong organization, and you will find a core of people who just kept showing up and bringing themselves again and again and again. And then often there will occur dynamic moments where God breaks through to do the extraordinary in the midst of the ordinary.
Are you saying in the individual's life or in the life of the organization?
It can happen with either of them, where God breaks through into my life and there's a massive breakthrough moment, or after a season of people pushing through and showing up, there can be a breakthrough for a company, for a church, for a nonprofit. But it almost always has faithfulness as the backstory and as the bedrock.
Yeah, that was a key observation that kind of gets at the heart of this series. When Jeff said a moment ago, you often arrive at greatness not through doing great things, but doing good things repetitively. They may not make a highlight package, but they are the bedrock of what often makes our life most significant. Being faithful in the ordinary is really important. Well, in the next segment, they're going to discuss the power of community and relationship. It was the English poet John Donne who wrote, "No man is an island." And as we'll discover, that principle has its roots in Scripture. We all need help from others if we're going to live a faithful life. And so we will explore that together right after we take a short break. Now, as we work our way through this study, lifting up the value of being faithful in the ordinary, let me encourage you to get a copy of Jeff's book titled Dream Big, Think Small. That book has kind of served as the basis for this series, and I really think you'll benefit from having a copy. Now, Jeff is my pastor at Ada Bible Church in the Grand Rapids, Michigan area. Ada's been our family's church home for well over 35 years. And I remember when Jeff preached this as a sermon series, and then in our small groups, we went through the material as well. In fact, that's an idea for your small group. Use the book and the related study material. Your group will grow and be encouraged by it. Again, the book's title is, like our series, Dream Big, Think Small, and we'll provide a link in our show notes for this series where you can get a copy of the book. You'll find the show notes on our discovertheword.org website, and then look for Dream Big, Think Small by Jeff Manion. So now let's listen as Jeff takes Mart and Elisa and Bill to the Old Testament book of Ecclesiastes for some wisdom about how we need friends to help us live a faithful life.
We've been talking about the power of ordinary common faithfulness and the fact that an extraordinary life is often lived one day at a time. So I just want to turn the conversation today to the topic of friendship,
Okay.
specifically long-term friendship. Can each of you name one dear friend that has been in your life for, let's say, over 10 or 15 years.
And you can't count your spouse.
No. Well, that may be true.
It may be true. Of course, lots of times it's true.
Yeah.
But beyond that, yes, I can name
Do you need to
a
list
couple
one?
of friends. Sure.
Okay, do
Sure.
it.
Well, there's a woman, well, actually, I have 4 other women that have walked through 4 decades with me.
Wow.
We group together annually to be together intentionally, but we also do kind of round-robin emails to keep up on each other's
So
lives.
when you say group, your home is currently in Denver.
Right.
Are the other people in your friendship group also in the...
2 are also in Colorado, one's in Texas, and one's in California.
So when you group, that takes effort.
It does. And a little bit of expense, too.
There's a group of guys that I've been hanging out with. It's been almost 25 years now. And I'm a pastor, and the other 3 happen to be pastors also. But again, it's also time and expense. Nathan, Carlton, Kevin, and myself. And Carlton flies from San Diego. It's twice a year. It's a 3-day retreat. So literally, we've done this fall and spring, fall and spring, fall and spring, fall and spring for over 20 years. When we started, I had preschoolers. I'm a grandfather now. And so it's all of this mileage together. And, you know, Elisa, I think that you would probably mark those friendships as one of your richest gifts in life.
My wife has had friends, I think over a 25-year period, and they did those small group retreats and, you know, lunches over and over again. But we've also been part of a small group that's been together, I think, almost 25 years now. And it was pulled together initially to help one of the couples who was in a very difficult spot.
Wow.
Since then, all of us have found, as we each live life together, that we've been there for one another.
Everybody's had their turn.
That's right,
Haven't
all
they?
of us, yes.
Okay. Mart, that is so critical to the passage of Scripture I want to read right now. Because in the passage of Scripture, we believe the author is King Solomon of Israel. And in the book of Ecclesiastes, he talks about traveling companions in life and how important they are when things are going wrong. It's several verses long, but he lists different travel scenarios. Bill, why don't you take a run at this one? Ecclesiastes 4, verse 9 through the first half of verse 12, and I might interrupt you as you read. Okay.
Ecclesiastes 4, verse 9. 2 are better than 1 because they have a good return for their labor.
Okay, now here's travel scenario number 1.
Okay. For if either of them falls, the one will lift up his companion. But woe to the one who falls when there is not another to lift him up.
Okay, now travel scenario number 2.
Furthermore, if 2 lie down together, they keep warm, but how can one be warm alone?
And then travel scenario number 3, just the first half of the verse.
And if one can overpower him who is alone, 2 can resist him.
All right, so what are the 3 unpredictable incidents that Solomon points to here?
Well, the first one's falling down.
Falling down.
Which could be a number of things.
But in the literal sense, we're talking people who often did work in the field. You fall into a hole that you don't see because you're coming back late. It's kind of like, if that happens to you, and it could, good to have somebody else that can help you limp back to town. But pity the one who falls, and there's no one there to help him. And the deal there is you don't know when you're going to take a spill.
Right.
So what's the second scenario?
The second scenario is someone getting caught in the cold. And if you're by yourself, the chances of staying warm are lessened.
This is a verse about body heat.
It is about body heat. In Colorado, we know all about that. If you're stuck in the wilderness and it's cold, you need to get next skin to somebody else's body or you get hypothermia.
Yeah, this is survival. And, back in the land of the Old Testament, no Doppler radar, no alerts that a storm is blowing in. And so probably good to have another body there. But again, it's about unpredictability. And third scenario?
Threat, danger. In this case, somebody attacks.
Yeah. It's a mugging.
Yeah.
Though one may be overpowered, 2 can defend themselves. If you're out there and guys come up, we want your money, we want your clothes, 2 of you just stand much, much better odds at defending yourself against this.
It's the phrase, there's safety in numbers.
There's safety in numbers. What kind of seizes me about this is the unpredictability of these scenarios.
On another side of it, Jeff, couldn't you say that it's predictably unpredictable? Because even though the specifics may be unpredictable, it is predictable that you're going to face problems, and facing them alone is going to be tough.
Living in a broken and fallen world, it's only a matter of time before I'm going to face something highly disruptive to my life. I'm going to slip. Mm-hmm. I'm going to find myself caught in the cold. I'm going to come under attack. And it is very important to be hiking with some people before that happens. Mm-hmm. And I think there is a propensity for some individuals who are highly self-sufficient to go, listen, I just don't need anybody. And you go, maybe you don't today, but it's the relationships we invest in when nothing is going wrong that sustain us when everything is going wrong.
I so agree with that. And my heart's tweaking for the person who doesn't have anybody to invest in, who looks around herself or himself and goes, well, I would love that. How do I get that?
What would you recommend to the person who says, right now I'm listening to this, I agree. You don't know how lonely and isolated I feel in life. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, and I love hearing your stories about you guys going off and having your weekends.
Yeah.
I don't have that.
What do you advise?
Yeah. The answer I give to myself when I'm in that situation is to invest myself, to notice who's around me and invest in what I see them needing. And as I invest in what I see them needing, likely it comes back to me.
May I add to that a tiny bit?
Please.
For the person that finds himself lonely and isolated, don't begin looking for a best friend. Mm-hmm. Simply begin looking, lift your chin, look at the people around you, begin to engage.
In terms of engagement, to be honest with people, be willing to admit your need. But I think you make such a good point. Don't expect the world from that other person.
But certainly don't expect to locate it before you begin to meet for coffee.
Right.
Yeah.
Or before you begin to meet for Bible study, before you begin to golf. Invest in some people's lives, and out of those acquaintances, ask your good and gracious God to surface some deep, deep relationships. And by the way, if a person feels lonely and that loneliness descends into depression, one of the demons of depression is that we begin to cocoon when we most need to get out and relate to other people. And so when we begin to get even, I don't mean clinically depressed, but even mildly depressed, to withdraw into ourselves, and we begin to isolate ourselves, and the very thing we need most is something we start walling off.
Yeah, pull back from.
And isn't it true in a situation like that, it's good to try to find someone else of similar interests or common need. The point I think we're seeing here is that you don't want to be alone.
Yeah.
You want other people to be in your life. We need to be honest with those other people and don't expect it to happen overnight and don't expect the world.
Well, because this whole passage leads to a kind of a culmination of the power of what happens in community, and I'm sure you want to take us there, but I can feel the yearning in many of us for, I want that too.
Well, the rich relationships, before we jump to that last, because I had Bill read the first half of verse 12, but not the second half of verse 12, and we need to mention that. But the richest relationships that we have, I don't think we knew that these were going to be the richest relationships when we started hanging out. You didn't meet these women and say, and 4 decades from now, we're still going to be together. I didn't meet these other 3 pastors and say, okay, we will now be lifetime friends. It's a gift that God gives in the journey. But the part that I didn't have you read, Bo, was just that last statement. Yeah. Read that last little clause.
A cord of 3 strands is not quickly torn apart.
All right, here it's talking about weaving string into rope. Investing in people when nothing's wrong, because some of these people will need us when everything is wrong. Individually, we are string. Together, we are rope. It's stronger, and it has the greater capacity to help us sustain ourselves and for God to sustain us when things are going wrong.
Yeah, individually, we are string, but together, we are rope. That's a memorable way of thinking about the power of community and how much we need each other to live faithful lives. That certainly is a key factor, isn't it? Because as Jeff said, the friendships we cultivate when nothing is going wrong really can sustain us when things fall apart. It's the power of community. All right, so are you possibly feeling a little overwhelmed at this point? I mean, we've talked about a lot of things that factor into living a faithful life. And so I hope this next segment will help you exhale just a bit. The point Jeff wants to make in this next segment is you can't do it all, and really you're not supposed to.
Do you ever feel like you're working really, really hard and still not doing enough? Elisa, any?
Sure, we get tied up in our contribution, get tied up in our performance, our work, our output, and so it's never quite enough. I struggle with that too.
It makes it impossible to say no.
Yeah.
To assignments or tasks or whatever.
I'm always feeling like I'm letting somebody down.
Yeah.
I'm not giving enough attention, that I don't care enough. And I feel like that's the reality. I mean, I feel like that's really true. I don't care enough for the people who are already within my circle.
And then think outside your circle. I'm thinking about the pain of the world and the brokenness of the world. When you start piling on or attempting to mentally calculate all of the areas of our world that are broken and in need of redemption or repair or restoration.
Or just help.
Yeah. Are you overwhelmed?
Yes.
Yeah, there's
Constantly.
an ongoing sense of not enoughness.
I was attending a conference in downtown Chicago years and years ago. And between speakers, they would have incredible nonprofit organizations share about their ministry. One person got up and he talked about how many young men grow up in fatherless homes and the massive need to have believing men come in and mentor them. And then the next person spoke about people that are released from a correctional, facility, an ex-offender, how difficult it is to get their feet on the ground and investing in people with a prison background. And then another person got up to share about how artists often feel alienated from uncreative churches and how creative churches that desire to reclaim the hearts of their artists need to work on all of these creative art forms. And my heart did not grow and grow and grow with every need. You throw in sex trafficking, clean water initiatives, sponsoring children in developing countries. I started to shut down and started to close myself off. And my first impression was, what's wrong with me that my heart wouldn't open to all of these things? And I'm confident it wasn't the individual opportunities, it was their sum. It was the accumulated effect of all the voices, which unintentionally kind of said, how dare you call yourself a Christian and not be involved in everything thing
24/7.
I walked away from that experience realizing, something, I don't think any of those ministries are masters of all those things. Meaning that the church with the exceptional mentoring ministry might not have been a leader in creative arts, and that the church in creative arts might not have had the prison ministry that was up and running. Just these times where you feel like I'm working really, really, really hard here, and I feel like I'm still not doing enough.
We live really close to the boundaries, don't we? Really close to our own limits. And they're real.
Well, the need is never met.
That's right.
It's an ongoing emptiness.
But the crisis is with us as individuals in trying to figure out how to deal with that.
Well,
right?
let me do something. I found a passage in the New Testament from the life of Jesus where I believe that Jesus could have easily been overwhelmed by all the opportunities to heal a broken world. And there's something that he does which I find comforting and also directive. And so the story happens in Mark chapter 1. And it starts on a Saturday, and Jesus is speaking in a synagogue, and a man that has a demon influence stands up and starts screaming. Jesus casts the demon out of him, and then after that he goes to Peter's home and heals Peter's mother-in-law. And then we read that evening, all of these sick people are brought to Jesus for healing. And so the day feels to me to be full, and yet it feels to me overwhelming by all of this human need. And then you find out what happens the next morning, very early the next morning, and it's the day that Jesus disappeared. The disciples wake up and he is gone, and they have no clue where he went. So who would like to read Mark chapter 1:35?
Sure. Very early in the morning, while it was still dark, Jesus got up, left the house, and went off to a solitary place where he prayed.
Okay, you get the setting here. People at the house the night before. Everybody goes to bed late. wakes up the next morning. And what time of day?
Very early in the morning.
Early in the morning.
Still dark.
It is still dark. And he went off to what kind of place?
Solitary place.
Away from the crowd.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, my translation says to a lonely place.
To a lonely
And mine
place.
says to an isolated place.
To an isolated place. He gets away from the noise. That's clear, right?
Yeah.
He gets away from all of the voices screaming for his attention. And what does he do?
Praise.
And he prays. I think what's happening here is that Jesus is communing with God the Father about where his time and attention are supposed to go in this next season. And the reason I think that is because when the disciples wake up, they start to look for him. They have no clue where he is. They form a search committee. And they
not the kind looking for a new
no,
pastor.
not the kind looking for a new pastor. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, they form a committee to, how are they going to find out where this guy is? Elisa, read what's next.
Simon and his companions went to look for him. And when they found him, they exclaimed, "Everyone's looking for you."
Okay. Everybody back in town, and happened to be Capernaum, is waiting for you to come back. And what does he say?
Jesus replied, "Let us go somewhere else, to the nearby villages, so that I can preach there also. That is why I have come."
Okay. He says, I'm not going back to town. I know people are waiting. I'm not going back to Capernaum. We're going to go to other villages. And in this time in Jesus' ministry, he's talking about the kingdom of God. What does it look like when God is king, when rebels return home, when people who have strayed from God are returning their hearts to God and honoring God as royalty, as king? He says, I'm going to continue to preach. And then that powerful statement, that is why I have come. And so when I discovered this, it really messed with my mental image of Jesus, because before I'd had this image of Jesus as the gentle healer traveling from town to town looking for people to heal. And now Jesus is presented in this season of his life as the teacher moving from village to village, in some cases barely staying ahead of a horde of people only interested in physical healing. In fact, very next story, a man with leprosy comes to him and says, I believe that you can heal me. And Jesus says, I will, but don't tell anybody. And you think, why would he do that? Because the more people he heals, the more it is impossible for him to walk into town and to have a conversation about the kingdom of God or deliver a message about the kingdom of God. You want to know how crazy it gets? Right after that is where 4 people bring their friend, and Jesus is attempting to teach, and they cut a hole in the ceiling and lower their friends down. That's how crazy this conflict became.
So he didn't heal everybody. He didn't touch everybody. He didn't minister to every single
Not
human.
every blind person was healing. Not every deaf person was hearing. He was willing to listen to God the Father and say, what is my assignment today? What is my assignment in this season of my ministry? But I think it was seasonal. I think different seasons in Jesus' ministry emphasize different things.
But even within that season, he was healing some.
Yes, he was.
He was leaving behind examples of what...
Correct.
Of his words.
Of his words.
Of the hope that he was offering.
Yeah.
I find it so interesting, Jeff, and you're connecting some dots for me, because it's almost as if, as you alluded to earlier, Jesus goes to a solitary place to pray and to commune with the Father. And then the very next things he says are, okay, I've gotten what I'm supposed to do next, and it's not stay here.
Yeah.
He got that in prayer with the Father the night before. Is that what I'm getting from you?
It's a powerful thing, because I think when all of these needs are in front of us, and they're all valid, they're all valid, and we go, I am overwhelmed by the needs of the world. Which one or two of these can I invest in now? I don't think we discern that in the noise. I think that often we have to get to a quiet place with the Father and say, of all the vast need out there, in this season of my life, where would you like me to invest my life, and where will you mobilize others to meet other people's needs? What happens in this passage for me is I feel freed to be able to give a confident yes and a liberating no to opportunity. At the end of Jesus' ministry, we find this in John chapter 17. Jesus prays and he says, Father, I have finished the work that you have given me to do. Not every blind person was seeing, not every deaf person was hearing, not every person who had lost their mobility was walking, but Jesus could say with confidence, I have finished the work you gave me to do. I don't think there's ever enough time to do everything we want to do, but there might be time to do what God is calling me to do.
And I think that part of the conversation is important to factor into our understanding of what it means to live a faithful life. You can't do it all, and actually, you aren't supposed to. That isn't the criteria for living a faithful life. Well, one more segment left of this Dream Big, Think Small study with author and pastor Jeff Manion, and it's going to build on what they just talked about in that last segment. They want you to think about how making sure that you have times of rest can contribute to your living a faithful life. They'll have that last part of the conversation right after we take a minute to take a look ahead at what we'll be talking about in our next study together. Next time here on the Discover the Word podcast, Daniel Ryan Day will be back at the table, and actually he'll be in the leader's chair for some conversations about technology in the Bible. Technology in the Bible. And right out of the gate, Daniel has a question for the group. He asks,
how would you describe your relationship with your devices?
Yeah, I think that'll get any group of people talking, won't it? Technology, like our phones and devices, has changed each of our lives for good and also for not so good. But then he also asks,
so would it surprise you to find out technology shows up in the Bible?
Yeah, and so what about technology in the Bible? Well, it's 2 episodes you don't want to miss of the Discover the Word podcast. I hope you'll be here to study with us. And now, the conclusion of Dream Big, Think Small with our friend Jeff Manion.
Jeff, this has been good.
Yeah.
It's been a good series.
So practical and yet super challenging. Yeah.
Well, and I think the super challenging part is because we do struggle with this idea of ordinary faithfulness that you've been walking us through these 2 weeks, Jeff. It's just been so helpful to see it in the life of so many. There's ordinariness everywhere.
Yeah. I really think faithfulness is under-celebrated, and it is just so needed. It's needed in our own lives, and it's needed in our organizations and in our churches. And it's a delight to be here at Discover the Word. My home is less than a 10-minute drive, and my church is in this community, and so I always feel like I'm hanging out with neighbors, like I'm driving down the street and hanging out with neighbors.
Well, you are, and you've helped your neighbors during these conversations, because breaking down faithfulness to small parts, little steps, that keeps faithfulness from sounding like this overwhelming challenge that we just simply can't live up to.
Well, this is a joy. This is a joy to be here. But I do have a challenging question for you.
Okay.
Do you take a day off consistently? Any of you?
Yes.
What day is it, may I ask?
Saturday.
Saturday?
Yeah.
Okay.
I take Saturday off.
Okay. Mark, consistent day off? I don't want
No, because right now there's some flexibility to my workplace and to my schedule.
Elisa, any consistent day off?
Bad, Elisa. Nope, I don't. I really don't.
Have you ever attempted to take like a regular Sabbath rest type day?
I've tried it in some seasons, and I don't mean to play the girl card, but it's really hard to take a day off as a mom.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now my kids are grown and gone, but I'll tend to have my grandkids on the weekends, different times. And that's not work, that's play.
Yeah.
But I'm still producing food. I'm still thinking ahead. And then I'll be honest, often I'm traveling on the weekends, getting ready to get to the next place.
And what do you mean by a day off?
Right.
Do you mean a day off
How do you not do anything?
from doing the same thing regularly, or a day off from doing any work, or a day off from...
And that's a great question. And let me just back up a little bit by mentioning this Sabbath concept. Okay. And the Sabbath concept is a stoppage. And I think that many people who take a day off end up simply switching to-do lists.
Yeah.
That is that they work for a company or an organization.
Then I don't take a day off.
Then you don't take a day off. Okay. And then when it comes to the day off, they simply set down their occupational to-do list, and then they pick up another to-do list, get the oil change, get the suit to the cleaners, get cash from the ATM, do the grocery shopping.
Vacuum the house.
Vacuum the house. Mm-hmm. What I would like to suggest, and the fact that we went around the circle and just kind of talked about how challenging this is I want to acknowledge the challenge of attempting to observe a down day in life. But I believe that it was woven into the fabric of the Scriptures. The Old Testament, you have the 10 Commandments. One of the 10 Commandments was about taking a break from labor one day in 7. And so I would just like to have us begin just by reading that command, and then dialoguing about what could be the beauty and then what are the obvious challenges. You talked about being a mom. As a pastor, I attempt to take Fridays off. I preach on Saturday and on Sunday. My material is never
ready,
perfectly written.
Right.
And so it's like I feel like my work is never really done. Yeah. So I have no interest in inspiring guilt, but just let's read it. Let's talk about it.
Okay.
And let's just talk about what some of the challenges and opportunities might be with this concept of a day regularly of Sabbath rest. So who wants to read Deuteronomy chapter 5, verse 12?
Observe the Sabbath day by keeping it holy, as the Lord your God has commanded you. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the seventh day is a Sabbath to the Lord your God.
Okay, now in Jewish culture, this was Saturday. Began sundown Friday night to sundown Saturday night. And so it's like 6 days. Cram your work into 6 days. The Sabbath, the seventh day, set that aside as different. And my understanding is that the word Sabbath simply meant stoppage. It's the setting aside of regular labor. Now, I would think that would be enough because some of the commands in the Ten Commandments are really short. Do not kill. Do not lie. Do not commit adultery. This one really gets elaborated on. And so partway through verse 14, on it, you shall not do any work, neither you, nor your son or daughter, nor your male and female servant, nor your ox, your donkey, or any of your animals, nor any alien residing in your town, so that your male and female servants may rest as you do. And so I think that's so important because if you are a wealthier person and you have servants working for you, it's like, we get a day out, but everybody else is working 24/7. The ideal here seemed to be, no, everybody needs a break. Everybody needs to set down their tools. And here the ideal was 1 day a week. The last verse, verse 15, points them back to their days of slavery because they're receiving the Ten Commandments after the Exodus from Egypt under the leadership of Moses. So what does it say in verse 15, Elisa?
Remember that you were slaves in Egypt and that the Lord your God brought you out of there with a mighty hand and an outstretched arm, and therefore the Lord your God has commanded you to observe the Sabbath day.
Now, when they were slaves in Egypt, they were under the taskmasters, and they were commanded, or they'd get abused, you get beaten up. Remember that you were slaves in Egypt once, and now you're God's people. And so take a day off in 7. Cut the chain to performance. Cut the chain to production. You are more than what you get done. And so 1 day in 7, give it a break. My wife and I attempt to do this on Friday.
Okay.
And we've done this for years, and we've tinkered with it, and we've experimented with it just to try to figure out what would a rest day look like, a day when we awaken and say, today, there's nothing we have to do, and there's no place we have to go. So even as I explain that a little bit, what are you thinking? What's going through your mind?
Well, what's going through my mind, and this isn't a like-for-like example of what you're talking about, Jeff, but last year, my wife and I borrowed a friend's condo down at the Outer Banks of North Carolina, and we took a week and just went down there, just the two of us, and I didn't take work with me, and I didn't take stuff with me. And about 3 days into that week, Marlene and I were walking on the beach, and she said, in 40 years of marriage, I've never seen you this relaxed.
Wow.
Obviously, they got my attention.
Yeah. You know what I'm thinking, and it's maybe a little bit differently, but I'm sensing that this law not only expresses concern for those of us who just plain need to stop and relax and to relive that feeling, but it also expresses a concern for those who are working for you or whose lives are burdened. And it reminds me of what Isaiah the prophet, he talked about the kind of Sabbath that the Lord asks for. It includes a day when you sense compassion and concern for others.
Yeah.
This is similar to when perhaps on a sacred holiday, you and your family choose to serve in the soup kitchen or be in the children's ministry for a special church service, or a way of investing in others so that they can breathe and take a rest.
And so Sabbath is not my reward for getting my work done. Sabbath is the break in the middle of my work.
Okay. Because none of our work is ever done.
It's never done.
That's what we've
it's
been
never
talking
done.
about.
Parents of small children. But I think that even the process of parenting can be done in a spirit where you go, and then we have to do this, and then we have to go there, and then we have to get this done, and then we have to get this done. What if there were a certain number of hours in the week where you say, okay, on Sunday afternoon between here and here, we're just going to relax. We're not going to try to fix the world.
Even a Sabbath window.
Even a Sabbath window. Just because I desire to take Friday off as a Sabbath, tragedy doesn't stop. Our friends still have weddings. And so there's nothing we have to do and there's no place we have to go. Okay, that works less than 50% of the time. But when we do have an obligation, we go, okay, what can we do to set aside 9 o'clock in the morning till 2 in the afternoon so that we can at least go out, have a cup of coffee, and slow down hours within that day? As we were first learning this, the image that I had in my mind, there are the standardized tests like the ACT, where you'll have so many math problems, 50-some math problems. You have 80 minutes to do it. It doesn't matter whether you're done or not. The facilitator goes, okay, pencils up. You go, yeah, I have 7 more questions. No, you're done.
Yeah.
Pencils up. There are times on Thursday evening when I've answered my last email, and literally I have to say to myself, Jeff, pencils up. You're done for now. Sabbath rest is not a reward for getting everything done. It's a break in the middle of the work. Now, we've been talking a lot about slow and steady faithfulness, about giving your best self again and again and again. I have found that I am most capable of bringing my best self, not by perpetual work, but in those times when I'm willing to step aside from the work and just allow God to restore and fill me.
A great way to conclude this series by talking about how important rest can be in living the faithful kind of life that we've been talking about. You're listening to Discover the Word alongside Mart DeHaan, Elisa Morgan, Bill Crowder, and our special guest for this 2-part conversation called Dream Big, Think Small, Jeff Manion. Our thanks to Jeff for spending these 2 episodes with us. He's a good friend, and it's always good to study with him here at the Discover the Word table. And as we close this series, I would encourage you to get a copy of Jeff's book called Dream Big, Think Small, and continue to think about how God probably isn't going to work through you via a constant stream of excitement and miracles, but through the faithful, repeated, everyday aspects of your life. That's a message we all need to hear. And so make sure you get a copy of Jeff's book, Dream Big, Think Small. We'll include a link in our show notes for this study at discovertheword.org. In the show notes, you'll find scriptures to read, some questions to help you reflect on what we talk about, and then those additional resources that will help you continue your study. And so in the show notes, you'll see a link to Jeff Manion's book, Dream Big, Think Small. The show notes are at discovertheword.org. Now, Discover the Word is part of Our Daily Bread Ministries, and our mission is to make the life-changing story and wisdom of the Bible understandable and accessible to people all around the world. They may not know it, but we provide resources to people in over 150 different countries, in 58 languages, through 32 offices with more than 700 global staff and over 1,000 volunteers. And as a donor-funded nonprofit ministry, it is the generous support of listeners like you that makes it possible for us to fuel a global Bible engagement movement. You can give a one-time donation, or you can become a monthly partner with us by visiting discovertheword.org and looking for the Donate button that's up at the top of the page. Thanks. And thanks for listening. I'm Brian Hedinga. Discover the Word is provided by Our Daily Bread Ministries.